Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Well, yeah. Shall I introduce you, Mother?
However you feel it. No
Yeah.
problem.
So, Brian mainly, but is this online?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So, just like to introduce His Holiness Padmanabha Swami for the first of a number of classes he's going to be giving. This one this evening is on inherent or inherited, but he's going to be giving a whole range of classes when he's here. Maharaj hails from Argentina. He joined at a very tender age of 19, then took sannyasa when he was 28. So he was a young sannyasi, and he has now, his mission is traveling the world and educating people in the science of Krishna consciousness and just helping congregations in any way he can. In any case, we heartily welcome him here to Bhaktivan in the middle of Kansas, actually in slap bang in the middle of the United States of America. Actually, it's exactly in the middle of the United States. Welcome, Maharaj.
One technical question: is it possible to close these curtains because some light is coming in the back and
That's why they're
it's
big.
getting a little bit difficult. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Am I okay here? Or
Perfect. Whatever you're more
Okay.
comfortable. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nam Shrishtam Manumapi Satyaputram Matrasharupam Rupam Tasyagrajmaru Purim Matarim Gastavatim Radha Kundam Giriparam Maho Radhik Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Gripaya Shri Gurum Tamnatasmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Mole Ratnamala Dyute Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupasyamanam Paritashram Harinam Samshrayami Anarpitacharim Chirat Kadunayavatirna Kalu Samarpaitamunnatujbalarasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sundipita Sada Hridaye Kandare Spurato Vasatinandana Ajanulambita Bujjo Kanakavadato Sankirtanaikapitaro Kamalaya Taksham Vishwambaro Dviyavaro Jugadharmapalo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vladini Shakti Sarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Radhe Vrindavanadhishi Karunamritavahini Kripaya Nijabhadabja Dashanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kiptashakamadi Kripamaitvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrindain Maste Charanarabindam Vrindain Maste Charanarabindam. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Sri Gaur Nityanand ki jai, Sri Sri Brajana Dhaladarju ki jai, Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai, Sri Bhaktivan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Pramanam
Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol. So, pranam to all. Pranam to all of you also connected online. And very honored, very happy to be here visiting Bhaktivan. So, we are today speaking, as Indranuja Prabhu mentioned some minutes ago in the introduction. Today there is an invitation to share some words in connection to a topic connected to a recent book that has been published, and some section in particular of it, of course. But again, to begin with, my pranam and my gratefulness to local devotees who some very generously have opened their doors to my little self. So thank you so much for that. So as you may know, some month ago approximately, some book has been published that I've written in the service of my Guru Maharaj and the Gaudiya community, in connection to Bhakti Tattva, in connection to Jiva Tattva, and in connection to many other topics surrounding those tattvas or those categories of reality. So somehow I've been sharing some lectures here and there, and I'll be doing in the next few months as a way of presenting part of the content of it. Is quite a large book, so different topics have been included there. But today I wanted to focus particularly in one section that I would like also to read, and on the basis of that comment upon one section of the introduction, which mostly has to do about some of my main concern or interest in writing a book like this, because as you may know, to begin with, it was not in my mind to write the book, but somehow different things happened in the way, and some inspiration came for that, and some instruction and blessings came for that. So again, in the service of of the Gaudiya society, principally, since this is not precisely an introductory book to distribute as a bestseller. It won't be a bestseller, I'm totally sure. It's pretty much specific and for certain practitioners with certain particular inquiries and certain need for hearing about certain topics, which for me I consider important, and I'm sure that some other devotees have been considering important as well. So let's say I'll read some brief paragraph from the introduction, and then I'll try to comment upon that. And of course, later, if we have any questions, we can also share for sure. So I'll be reading. Okay, for those who are catching a book to read along with me, I will be reading in page 35, but with Roman numbers, which is the introduction, before we get to the official beginning of the book, where I mentioned some few ideas that today I thought it may be useful to share and try to elaborate upon. So again, it's page 35 with Roman numbers. It says like this. I won't be reading everything, but I will maybe skip in some sections, but trying to share the gist of it. In our present times, the Gaudiya Sampradaya is in urgent need of conversation with itself, as well as of ample room for freedom of theological thought in order to transcend the cognitive rigidity and tribal thinking that so much characterizes the approach of the novice. So maybe I should stop there for a moment and try to unpack that. That's the very first sentence, if you will, of this paragraph, and which for me is how to say. I've always been quite inspired, surprised in the beginning, but inspired at the same time, seeing how many of our main representatives in our tradition also were the ones who have been criticizing their own tradition constructively. I mean, for me, that's always has spoken a lot about how much they were part of the tradition, how much they were actively engaged with trying to make the tradition, whatever it may be, not only limiting to Gaudiya, Vedanta, Gaudiya, Sampradaya, how much a real active member, if you will, of a tradition is concerned about seeing it developing and growing and not getting, how to say in English, stagnated in some particular point, because the tendency is there also in any organized religion to sometimes get stuck in comfort zone and remaining just card-carrying member, if you will, of a group, but not ultimately embracing, if you will, the ultimate call of the school of thought we may belong to. To my mankind personalities, even like Jesus Christ, even, and some others who were criticizing so much the contemporary environment he was in and trying to, as he said, I'm not saying anything new, I just trying to update and refresh the ancient teaching and how to be applied. Of course, with this, I'm not trying to compare myself with these personalities at all, but I'm saying how much I've been always inspired by those non-conformist members of any tradition, mystics, and if you want to put it, revolutionaries, however you may like to call them. Revolutionaries with good reason, not without any reason, because you can also be anarchist without any really deep commitment with your own tradition. So as a member of the Gaudiya Sampradaya for the last maybe 20-something years, I'm really in love with this tradition, for sure. It's something that it amazes me at every day, and the depth and breadth of the reach of Mahaprabhu's gift is like astonishing, really overwhelming. The more one try to understand that, to appreciate that, the more it's like it keeps updating itself. That's the point. No, we always hear that in the higher realm, everything is in movement. There is a dynamic constantly happening. It's not that you get to Golok Vrindavan and everyone is there like in the same position always, if you will. Always there's much more love for Krishna every single second than before. At every single moment, Krishna is loving much more his devotees than before, and his devotees loving Krishna than 1 second before, if you want to put it somehow. It always is like constant expansion. So my point is, if that's going on in our ultimate goal, and we would like to enter there, somehow we are expected to enter into that dynamic on some level in our particular situation here on earth as sadhakas. Because if not, we shouldn't think like in a naive way. No, here I may be whatever, stuck on conformist or comfort zone like, but suddenly I will enter into that world where everything is growing, expanding, dynamic, and moving. If I'm not willing to enter into that dance, if you will, in the here and now, it won't happen. It may be, Krishna won't be that cruel to throw me to a place that I'm not willing to participate in. So I'm connecting all this in relation to this idea of, as a member of a school of thought, we are always invited to try to, how to say, as we were speaking some days ago in New York, in New Jersey, that we have to be very careful not to take Krishna consciousness for granted. Like, I already know what's Krishna Bhakti. I know the Bhagavatam. I know the Artik. I know Kirtana. I know Harikatha. And by saying I know that, automatically we are subtly getting accustomed to something that has the potential to always grow and expand, and in that way we will never get accustomed. Actually, we have to always readapt constantly to that movement eternally. That's the nature of the higher realm. Krishna plays the flute, like my Guru Maharaj likes to say, plays the flute on that side of the Jamuna, if you will, and everyone running after that. But the gopis reach the other side of the Jamuna. Now Krishna is no longer there. He's on the other side of the Jamuna, playing the flute. And it's not that the gopis say, "Hey Krishna, no, we crossed so many obstacles to reach you, and now that we arrived, you are no longer here. You are too whimsical. We stop this game." They will never say that. They will just run behind that. So my point is that Krishna's style, if you will, is unpredictable. and to deal with that style, to deal with that person and personality of God, his supreme personality, with that particular mode, we need to be flexible in the here and there. Gradually, we need to exercise our inner muscles to have that capacity of adaptation and flexibility. So when we enter that plane, we will be real participants there, and we will be able to follow the dynamics of that place, which are really dynamic, really intense, not as something bad, not as something to be scared about, but as something that requires certain preparation and qualification from our part. So again, for me, in great part, it all begins, or it not begins from day one, but at some point to not taking Krishna consciousness for granted, not getting overtly accustomed to, again, I know what the Bhagavatam is about. We always hear the Sriman Mahaprabhu. He will hear Bhagavat from the lips of Gadadhar Pandit on a daily basis. Gadadhar Pandit will, for example, be presenting Dhruva Maharaj Charit, Dhruva Lila, or Prahlad Charit. So Mahaprabhu will be speaking all this section of the Bhagavatam, which interestingly are not the most esoteric sections of the Bhagavatam. And Mahaprabhu will hear the whole Prahlad Charit, Dhruva Charit, and at the end of the whole narration, you may know, what did Mahaprabhu say? No, he didn't say, go to the next section, or if Gadadhar Pandit will speak again about Prahlad Maharaj, Mahaprabhu never said, "Oh, I already heard that story. No, that's an old one. I know Prahlad Maharaj. I can recite it from tip to toe, from beginning to end, by heart." Mahaprabhu never said that. No? Gadadhar Pandit was reciting again Prahlad Charit, and Mahaprabhu is heard absorbed. The narration ended, and he said, "Again, Prahlad Charit." He ended, Mahaprabhu said, "Again, the life of Prahlad." He never said the same thing again. It's never say the same. It's never the same for him. So when Mahaprabhu said again, it was not again the same thing. Because for us, again may sound like the same thing is coming now. But Mahaprabhu was imploring Gadadhar Pandit, Prahlad Charit one more time. That one more time was a new time and a new time. So my point is that that's the nature of transcendence. It's constantly updating itself. So it's demanding from us also constant updating of ourselves. That's how life moves. I want to speak. I'm not speaking even about Gaudiya Sampradaya, just life in itself. Everything is moving. Everything is changing. Even everything is adapting. I don't want to go fully into Darwinian terms, but we can say this: the survival of the fittest, if you will. Bhagavatam has some very Darwinian sections. He says Jiva Jivasya Jivanam, for example, which means one Jiva is the Jiva of another Jiva. Of one living entity is food for another. You can put it in the Darwinian terms, survival of the fittest. Or survival who has the most capacity to adapt. That's my point. Fittest doesn't mean like, let's kill each other and let's see who survives. But let's see, the more we have a capacity to adapt, the more we will become eligible to access the higher domains, with demand adaptation constantly. And Krishna himself is giving that example to begin with. It's not that Krishna say, come to me and you will have to adapt at every moment. Krishna himself is every single day becoming updated, a new Krishna, more functional according to the needs of the moment. Like when you have your cell phone, and you have the apps, and you have to download the latest version, because if not, it's no longer functional. So that's not only limited to technology, but life works like that. Now, if you don't download the most updated version of yourself, you start to feel, I'm no longer operative in reality. Realities continue to flow, and I became stuck who knows where, on this sidetrack or whatever. So I'm trying to unfold a little bit of what I've been reading till now, in regarding to, sometimes as a member of a school of thought, naturally one observes, and I'm not saying I'm free from that, it all begins at home, this potential tendency to take things for granted, and to think, and to become some, if you will, passive member of a tradition that is not passive at all. Again, we are members of a very deep and profound school of thought. So last thing we want is to become like passive members of something that is extremely non-passive, basically. How we can represent and honor our ideals with our own example. So I'll continue some brief words regarding what I just read. I'll read the last paragraph again, since you came now. It's brief. It says, in our present times, the Gaudiya Sampradaya is in urgent need of conversation with itself, as well as of ample room for freedom of theological thought, in order to transcend the cognitive rigidity and tribal thinking that so much characterizes the approach of the novice. So when I say novice, sometimes we call it kanishta. I'm not condemning the novice. No, we have to begin somewhere. No, when you are a baby, you urinate yourself and all this type of thing that may be embarrassing as an adult, but as a baby, it's like part of the deal. No? You have to go through that. In one sense, it has to be there. So again, one has to be novice. One has to be naive and whatever, so many things. But eventually, there's another chapter waiting for us. So some of the attributes of the novice is black and white thinking, if you will, not very nuanced perception of reality. Things are like good or bad. You are in Maya, you are a karmi, or you are a devotee. Just in case I don't like those types of expressions. It's not that there are only one type of karmi and there are only one type of devotee. Generally, these two things kind of intertwine on some level. So reality is not black and white, as my Guru Maharaj said. Between black and white, there is 256 varieties of gray. and gradually we are to enter into that possibility in between. But again, in the beginning, we think in terms of black and white. We need to think in those terms. It's part of the survival of the fittest at that stage. But the more we grow, we start to realize, oh, there's much more diversity than what I thought. And I need to accommodate this. I need to harmonize. That's a very important point in our tradition, harmony. Harmony means you take elements that are different, but put them together in such a way that they are beautiful. I mean, the very term comes from music. And you can create harmony by playing different notes and make a chord, they say. Chord, you say? Chord, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm practicing my English with you. That will be the case for the following days. So a chord includes different things, but put together in certain way that sound like one thing in a very harmonious way. So harmony basically means that to integrate elements that in the beginning we do not see as potentially integrative or whatever, but find an equation in which we can find a higher synthesis. And that thing that in the beginning was still like opposite to one another, now they are put together in such a way that create beauty. So that's the idea of the progress we are expected to do. So it says, and this transcendence can only be genuinely achieved if it arises out of established Gaudiya Siddhanta that takes into consideration an epistemic hierarchy. So of course, this means I'm saying all this in the context of the topic of my book. So if we want to integrate different ideas that on some stage may be like not so friendly with one another in our minds, it's important that we know how to approach knowledge and how to know what we want to know. That's epistemology, basically. How do we know what we know? There's a way to know certain things, especially when we speak about transcendence. There is a particular method to understand reality, because transcendence by its very definition is beyond our grasp, if you will. It's like if you want to know about something that is beyond your mind and senses and your immediate instruments, well, good luck. If you want to try it by yourself, if you want to thread the ascending method, some calls called Avaroha Panta. That's also in music, when you play like ascending scale, like Stairway to Heaven. You may have heard that song. So you want to thread, you construct a ladder that you want to ascend to heaven, but our path is Aroha Panta, which means descending. The infinite reveals itself to the finite. Because if not, try to imagine, we are finite units of consciousness. I'm not downplaying that. There's a lot of potential in that. But in the project of trying to address the infinite, I mean, it's like overwhelming. Where to begin? In my finitude, is it? Okay, finite composition, whatever. I'll be creating new words at every moment, just in case. You correct me, just in. So, as Srila Siddhar Maharaj once nicely put, someone told him, finite, in the finite can conceive the infinite. Then that's a problem for the infinite, because if the infinite is conceived by the finite, it means that the infinite is no longer infinite. But he said, no. He said, if the infinite has not the capacity to make himself known to the finite, it's not infinite. Because infinite means infinite possibilities. So if the infinite in his infinity, I was about to create another word. The infinite in his infinity has to have the capacity to reveal himself to the finite and remain infinite. So that's for us, this idea of descending process. Bhakti means we try to put ourselves under a certain energy, if you will, under a certain influence, in which the infinite is constantly like descending to this particular plane. And that's what we call bhakti. Bhakti. So bhakti means a particular energy, not any energy, but the energy, if we want to speak in terms of hierarchy of Shaktis or potencies. Swarup Shakti or Bhakti is the internal, it's the heart of Krishna, if you want to define poetically. He says that in the Bhagavatam. He says, Mad Atmaka. Bhakti is my own heart into this world. So try to imagine. That's Bhakti. Bhakti means Krishna's heart appearing in our midst, basically. And we are the ones who choose to enter and remain under that influence or not. So those are the two options we have, to put it very simply. How we can exercise our free will on this plane. You have Bhakti, this divine ray descending on this plane, or Maya Shakti, which is basically a shadow-like reality influence, somehow a distorted expression of the ideal reality. So that's Bhakti. The more we put ourselves under the influence of Bhakti, the more our self expands instead of contracting. Krishna is saying that in the Gita. What does he say? He says, Mahatmana stumam partam daivim prakritim ashritaha. He says, my devotees are called Mahatmas. Mahatmas. Mahatma means great soul. Of course, we are not speaking here about physical size, because the soul doesn't have physical size. So it's not that Mahatma is someone, I don't know, Neela is a Mahatma because he's taller than the rest, or Ankota Prabhu or myself. We are here the Mahatmas because we measure a little bit more than most of you. And Lalita Saki is not a Mahatma, sorry. It has nothing to do with that. No, it has to do about how expanded is our consciousness. So interestingly, Krishna in the Gita only uses the term Mahatma to refer to his devotees, like implying there are Atmas in every place and engaged in different things, but Mahatma means someone whose consciousness has reached the ultimate level of expansion, which is love, basically. So someone who loves is someone who has really exercised his or her heart to the utmost degree, to the point that Krishna said, wow, Mahatma, big soul. Big soul means also your heart is so big that it has space for so many things and to accommodate so many things. When your heart is like, or consciousness is contracted instead of expanded, there's no place to put many things and to accommodate many things and many people. We may be even uncomfortable living our own inner self. There's no space even for us when we are too conditioned, too contracted. That's in Sanskrit called Duratma. That's the opposite of Mahatma. Mahatma means big soul, Duratma means small one. So sometimes we don't feel even comfortable inhabiting our own minds. So what to speak of making place for the rest of the world? First, we have to learn how to coexist with our own self. So Mahatma means, again, great soul, expanded consciousness, breadth, depth, place for everyone. Like when Srila Prabhupada was said, he constructed a house in which the whole world could live. I mean, ultimately, this has to do with his heart. It's not about a particular institution or a building. It's about the depth and breadth of his own heart, which had the power to do what we know he did, and we are here as byproducts of that, of the Mahatma, if you will. So to have expanded consciousness means like you have such a heart that you can accommodate all that comes in your way. That's the nature of love. Love can harmonize everything. Love doesn't like to reject stuff, but to find the proper place for everything. There's one verse by Srila Rupa Goswami in that's Ujjwal Nilamani, I think. He says, Aheri Bhagati Premna Trabhava Kutilabhavit. First part of the verse. I love to quote this line in many ways. So this means love moves in a crooked way, like a snake. If you have seen a snake, if you have had the good fortune of seeing a snake, you will realize that. Yeah, I'm sure. That's a pretty favorable place for that. So snakes are not moving like this, no? In straight line, but zigzag, you say, right? Crooked. So many things can be said in that connection. No? You can say love moves in a crooked way because of its unpredictability. No? You cannot tell it goes here, goes there, and then goes there, and I know how it moves. You don't know which will be the next event in that connection. But also we can say love, and those who love moves in a crooked way or in a zigzag way. Srila Siddhar Maharaj said this beautifully once, because someone who loves is walking, and that person is, by doing this, is embracing everything that is on both sides of his way, of his path, and including everything, embracing everything. He's not doing like this and rejecting this and rejecting that on the left and on the right, but everything on the way is made part of a higher equation, if you will, in their life. They have that capacity. So sorry if I'm becoming too poetic or you feel like that, but what to do? No, this tradition lends itself to conversion. So my point is that we belong to a tradition that if we want to be like deep, mature members of it, we need to know how to deal with it, to know how we know things in this tradition, to know how bhakti comes to our life. And some words, let's see where we end. How to appreciate and ascertain the latter may possibly be one of the first and main topics of such a dialogue, and calls for our deeply reflecting on the different stances and internal tensions coming from these and other issues, rather than simply caricaturing them and their advocates for the sake of polemics. We are not interested in launching a tattva crusade, but rather in engaging in a vibrant and dynamic heart-to-heart conversation within the context of revelation. Here I'm trying to share some of the main principles that, at least personally, I consider crucial when not only writing a book, because again, for me, this book is an attempt of conversation. No, for me, it's not like, okay, last word, you cannot say anything, just read the whole thing and accept it, surrender. It's not in that spirit. Although I may present certain topics in a conclusive way, it's in the context of my own research and conviction, but also trying to make it clear this is a conversation, this is an ongoing dialogue. My Guru Maharaj likes to define revelation as ongoing dialogue. As we say before, it's not just, okay, this is the revelation, there's nothing else that can be said. No. If revelation is actual revelation, so much else can be said on the basis of that revelation. It's not that, okay, Bhagavad Gita is there, we need only one commentary and nothing else can be said. Once Srila Prabhupada was with my Guru Maharaj, and someone asked him, Srila Prabhupada, what's the next book you plan to publish? And he already had published his Bhagavad Gita commentary. So Srila Prabhupada said, I think I may publish the Bhagavad Gita commentary. So what's like, but you already did that. And he looked at them as a chuckle, like, so many commentaries can be written about it. Like implying there's no end to all that one. What can we say about infinity? I mean, there is no end. Ikshate Shabdat, say Vedanta Sutra, which means you can never say enough about the absolute, which doesn't mean you shouldn't say anything, but just that you never, again, conclude, okay, this is it. Nothing else can be said. That's the death of the tradition, basically. So revelation is an ongoing dialogue, and we are to engage in it because we are members of revelation. We are members of a tradition that sustains itself on revelation. It's not something, again, frozen in time, copy paste, and just repeat what someone says 500 years ago, and you already know the correct answers, what to reply when every single question comes, and okay, I know it all. No, so many things can be added to that, can be unfolding from that point. So basically, that's the type of dialogue that I'm personally quite interested in and trying to somehow kindle, you say, when writing this book. A little bit more. This says, in this spirit, and while presenting a particular conclusion with logical and compelling arguments, this work is not actually written as a theological coup de grace, but as an open letter to the worldwide Gaudiya community, hoping to invoke among its members an ongoing, truly Socratic dialogue, polite and considerate, while offering our opinions without malice, but as a gift to each other. So, yeah. So Socratic dialogue basically has to do with that. No, we are having a dialogue, and we are both of us part. It could be a way of describing what in Sanskrit is called vad. There are three types of so-called conversation, if you want to call it. We have vad, we have jalpa, and we have vitanda. So vad, jalpa, and vitanda means conversation, quote-unquote conversation. Basically means you and I get together, and I just want to impose my opinion on you. I don't even give you time to say what you think. I just jumping, shouting on your neck and throwing all that I think is correct. So that's not a conversation, technically speaking. That's deep violence, but it's mentioned in that context. Vitanda. Jalpa means there's a high level of politeness, or I will say diplomacy, where you give the time to the other person to express their thoughts, but nonetheless you are waiting for your turn to say your thing that you are totally convinced this is the only thing. But say what you have to say. Oh, okay. So you are hearing, quote unquote, but just waiting for your turn to. And basically, Bada, which is what we are interested in, hopefully, means conversation, and conversation means I don't want to win. Basically, I'm not entering this as a battle as us and them, but let truth be the winner. Basically, no? Whenever it has to manifest. If I'm right or you are right, actually truth is manifesting. So I'm willing to know the truth, whatever it takes, however it manifests. That's my sincere longing. No? So that's the ideal type of dialogue we are expected to have as Gaudiya Vaishnavas and as hopefully as actually human beings. And don't forget that Gaudiya Vaishnavas should be human beings as well. No, it's not that one thing is separate from the other. No? It's not that being transcendental means being inhuman or neglecting our human sensibilities, but actually integrating them in the context of this higher transcendental equation. So basically, that's the spirit of this presentation. It's just a little bit an introduction to which is my intention in approaching the audience with this book. Not trying to, again, defeat anyone, but actually be defeated by truth, whatever it takes. I have even shared my book with many people that I knew thought differently than me, because I knew I will be nourished by their different stance. And there's chance of, as I say, we can agree that we disagree on some levels even, but there's chance to be nourished with that. I'll read one last paragraph and some few words, and then if you have any questions, we can also share. So I'm just jumping some sections here. This is page 37 in Roman numbers. It is likely that this book contains a great many ideas that will take readers out of their comfort zone. Sorry for that. But if we are to develop the aforementioned conversation with one another, we must then bear in mind that this is the very purpose of any real dialogue between people who wish to provide a real contribution to themselves and others. And this is especially so for those who are members of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, a school of thought that distinguishes itself by its liveliness, breadth, and depth, fearlessness in venturing into the nuanced possibilities of revelation. So yeah, I mean, it has taken me out of my comfort zone at every single page. So probably that is extended to the readers. But again, as we always say, real learning can only happen outside of the comfort zone. If you remain in the comfort zone, there's no real learning, real wisdom, real epiphany happening. You need to go out of the comfort zone. The other day I was hearing one person speaking about promoting the glories of cold shower in the morning. And of course, you may have heard that many of our other practitioners in our lineage also do that. But I was thinking, well, who knows which is the reason behind each one is doing that? No? And I like this person, what he said. He said, well, actually, the main reason I'm taking cold shower in the morning is because it's uncomfortable. So it takes me out of my comfort zone. So I choose to begin my day out of my comfort zone. So that it kind of defines the rest of the trajectory of the day. It not only depends on that, but it's a first impression there. So I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm not saying so because of that everyone has to have a cold shower, but my point is the principle behind it, the action. Valuing, it will be uncomfortable, but it will set my mind in a particular way. We will create an angle of vision. It will create a perspective that hopefully it remains with me for the rest of the day and for the rest of the week and for the rest of the month and for the rest of my life and so on. But we have to begin somewhere. If you want to create something that will accompany you for the rest of forever, begin maybe in tomorrow's morning shower or whatever may be the case. I'm not, again, promoting something in particular. So yeah, I feel that this idea of venturing in a fearless way beyond the comfort zone is a very necessary adventure for every person, not only a spiritual practitioner, but especially if someone officially says, I belong to a spiritual tradition. I want to speak if someone says, I belong to the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is a very mystical tradition, a very dynamic school of thought that naturally invites you to enter into those unknown realms. And as we were saying the other day, something interesting regarding the unknown is that generally we are afraid of the things that we do not know. If something is unknown, it's like I lose control. I don't know what may happen. So we prefer to remain in the comfort zone, basically. Out of the comfort zone is to the unknown. And this unknown or this fear to the unknown can be directed in two directions. In one direction, we may be afraid of all the things that are inside of us, but we are not aware of. Sometimes in psychological terms, let's call it the subconscious. In practical terms, sometimes I like to call it like the shed. You have a shed here where you put all the stuff that you don't know where to put. So the shed of your consciousness. So where to put this shed? Where to put this shed? At one point, the shed starts to have a life of its own. And you start to hear voices from the shed, some arm coming. And you say, you put that in the shed. I don't know if I want to go to the shed. You start to throw things to the shed at distance just in case. But someday you have to do something because the whole shed will swallow your whole house, if you will, your whole life. So in that way, in that direction, we may be like, oh, I don't know if I want to deal with all that. So some fear to the unknown. But interestingly, in the other direction, also, we have a very brilliant and beautiful potential as Tatasta Jivas, as what we are. We are something plus all that we can be. And we are not aware of all that we can be. That's why sometimes we get basically depressed or things like distracted, because we lose sight of all the brilliant potential that is with us. But that brilliant potential is unknown to us. And just because it is unknown, we may be afraid of that as well. That's something interesting. We may find a very enlightened personality who is very loving and wise and so on. And we feel, oh, some invitation to my brightest potential is coming now. But because it's unknown to us, we may feel some apprehension, like, ooh, I don't know if I want to go there. Although it speaks about our brightest potential. I'm not speaking here about the shed. I'm speaking about the most brilliant sun of our prospect, but it's unknown. And we are fearful of the unknown sometimes, whether it's shade or it is sun. So it's very important that as practitioners, we gradually learn to deal with this unknown, which is, again, out of the comfort zone, and try to develop this abhayatva. No? Srila Prabhupada is called Abhay Charan. He who, by remaining at the feet of Hari, becomes abhay, no? Free, fearless, basically. So fearless have to do with this. No more fear because of the unknown. I'm willing to embrace the unknown and explore all those sections in my life, whether it may be the shed. We need to be, of course, we have to be supported for that. It can be an odyssey or our brightest potential. That's not also a joke. We need some guidance and support and love and friendly to discover all that we can be. So again, part of the book is pointing in that direction, trying to create, as my Guru Maharaj will put, a teachable moment. And again, teachable moment can happen outside of the comfort zone. Teachable moment means we are invited to consider a new angle of vision. And that sometimes may be uncomfortable because we are accustomed to see things a certain way, and we are invited to see things in a new way. As we were sharing the other day in New Jersey, once one devotee approached Srila Siddhar Maharaj and asked him, Guru Maharaj, can you give me some service? And this devotee was young and very innocent, very nice, but naive. So he was expecting that Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, yes, you can wash the pots, or you can, some easy practical stuff. So he asked, can you give me some service? And Srila Maharaj said, yes. Change your angle of vision. Period. That was the service. The devotee ended like Nila. No? He was like, okay. I will end the same way. I mean, like, okay, he had just given me service for my entire life. Because when you change your angle of vision, you will also see there are service opportunities everywhere. I don't even need to ask for service. That will manifest. So constantly changing and readjusting our approach to reality, that's a service unto itself. No? So basically, that's a little bit the spirit behind this little publication that through which I have tried to hopefully make some little contribution to the Gaudiya community and to again to our own individual practice and process and as practitioners. So that's what I want to share today as a brief introduction to this book. I didn't have any script in mind, just like let's see what comes. So if you have any comments or questions, we have some minutes. So I like also to expand the conversation, the dialogue, if you will.
I was just going to ask, could you just give us an idea why it's called Inherent or Inherited?
Okay. Well, basically the name of the book has to do with it's a very subtle difference, if you will, no? But the main point is bhakti, as we spoke before, bhakti is this internal energy of Bhagavan, the essence of the Swarup Shakti. And we are bhaktas, we are practitioners of bhakti. And we are called jivas, sometimes called jiva Shakti. We belong to a particular, if you will, energetic department of God called souls. There's another energetic department of God called bhakti. Different Shaktis, Swarup Shakti and Tatastha Shakti, or Bhakti Shakti and Jiva Shakti. So basically, one of the main points that I try to make in the book is analyze whether bhakti is inherent in the jiva or not, or inherited, as making a play of words, if you will. Whether bhakti is part of the jiva's constitution, we are made with it, if you will, although we are not made in any point in time, or bhakti is not part of the jiva's constitution, but the jiva's constitution is such that it has the potential to host bhakti in their lives and attain its ultimate prospect. So again, it's a very subtle difference. One may ask even a whole book about such a subtle point. But hopefully for those who take the time to read it may realize that, yeah, it's a subtle point, but there are many important considerations on the way of establishing that subtle point. It's not just whether inherent or inherited, just say the word and that's all. I mean, why 430 pages? Just say the word. Is this inherent? No, there are many things to consider on the way of concluding with one word, simple answer word. No, so I've tried to address that. So the main topic is again, or the background to the title is that one, but in the context of trying to sort out that point, many other points come in connection to that. So that has been my attempt. Yes. Let's see how it works.
and I'll tell you, I'm about a third of the way through the book right now. And Maharaj, if nothing, it's a very scholarly work, and I would almost say it's threadbare. You know, I think Neil, you're reading it also. You might agree with me that you don't often get books like this. I mean, even when we read Bhagavad Gita, we read the verse and we understand what it means, and we read the purport and we understand why the purport refers to the verse, that type of thing. But it isn't threadbare in the sense that it's comparing something to something. You know, with the traditional books, you know, like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or Bhakti Rasamrita, it really is just here are the verses and here's the idea behind the verses. This is a different look. This is saying, here's one side of the equation, and here's the other side of the equation, right? And you know, this is what the Shastra says about that particular idea. So, anyway, it's very, very enlightening. I have to say, it's very enlightening. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not my book in the sense of I'm putting my own ideas or what I think, but I'm trying to share what Shastra is saying, what the scriptures are mentioning about that, and trying to put them together in a way that shows the logical thread, if you will. No, there has to be also common sense. It's not just like some forced doctrine or dogma. Here it is, no, but it has to make sense. It has to have some proper contextual presentation.
So it seems like it's a little controversial in that there are some schools of Bhakti that believe it's inherent, certain aspects are inherent. So do you give both sides of the argument?
Yeah, I try to entertain the different like approaches and possibilities.
I haven't quite got there yet, but yeah.
You are about to start chapter 6?
7.
Okay, that's a chapter.
Interesting.
Yeah, there I try to entertain like the main, if you will, arguments or thoughts that somehow think in the different way that one I have tried to establish in the first 6. No?
Are there also nuances here that, I get the impression that perhaps there are ideas within here that aren't quite so simple as black inherent.
Yeah, of course. That's the title of the book. I had to choose some fancy title to put, so you cannot get to explain everything in detail in the title. So it was some play of words and the connect that somehow makes sense, of course, in the context of the presentation, but also I've tried to clarify in one footnote that there's much more nuance to just one thing or the other. No, it's not that I try to speak in terms of like really like creating a dichotomy, like this or this end of the story.
Actually, the footnotes are interesting. He has some very long footnotes, and the footnotes to me are really interesting. You get to a certain point, and he'll just stop there and say, "Look at the footnote," and all of a sudden you'll see this footnote, and it's just kind of arguing back and forth, and just quoting this and saying, "Well, this is this and this," and then you have to go back and read the whole thing again, in the sense that you just read this really complicated footnote. I'm always thinking it must be like the law, maybe.
It's very academic. Yeah, in a pure sense. We were talking about it being threadbare. It's very academic, and it kind of speaks to this. Was it Vadha as a style of
Vadha? Yeah,
seeking the truth, and so there's no. It's not a presentation necessarily of your interjection into this. You're like, hey, here's all these cool ideas, and here's all the background information. Take a look.
It's interesting because it was not in my plan to write academically, but it's how it turned out. I've never had studies in academia, even, interestingly, because I joined the ashram when I was like 19, and that was my period of studies and still is. But yeah, interestingly, then the book was shared with some academics, which really found lots of academic content, and they endorsed the book, as you have seen, and so on. I was like, oh, okay. one academic even told me, like, Maharaj, this has the level of a doctoral thesis, and I was, what's that? Okay, well. Again, I try to be very careful about not like appropriating. I mean, like, this is my book. Of course, I had to put my name there, what to speak, what to do. But yeah, I put that in I think in the introduction or somewhere. That generally, you write the book and you think I'm writing the book for you, the audience. But in this case, experience was like someone else is writing something beyond me, and I'm the audience. I'm witnessing all that is coming. So it was a really, for me, interesting idea of like how to approach like transcendental authorship, no? Because one can have egoic authorship. Oh, this is my book and I'm the author and my rights are here and please pay the whatever. But in this case, it's more like, okay, I'm being instrumental in what's coming through me, and I'm trying to, of course, use my will to present that as logically as possible. But still, I'm the audience, I'm the reader, I'm the witness. So that's humbling, basically. At the end of the day, you have the book, and many people may say, "Wow, it's incredible and academic and many things," but still, fortunately, this other experience remains to save me, basically, and not thinking I am something I'm not. No? So that's basically the experience. So
I was also going to mention that Edwin Bryant does the introduction, and Advaita has been.
Yeah, I saw that review.
It's actually beautiful. It's actually beautifully written. I was just quite. I was quite. In fact, the introduction and what's the other one?
Forward.
For Forward, yeah, are both beautifully written by wonderful devotees who just really, but they're very academic, you know. So it's kind of that's amazing, you know.
They were very generous with their words. Yeah, some other question, comments?
We were talking about depression being a distancing from that sort of ray of revelation. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, if I'm not mistaken, when I was speaking about being depressed or something to that effect, it was more in the context of not being, I mean, it can be connected to what you say, but I think I'd mentioned that it was most in the line of being unaware of our potential. So being like not fully aware, if you will, not unaware totally, but not fully aware of all that we can be, and maybe over-identifying with just a limited version of ourselves. Again, as we mentioned today, like contracted mind, and this is who I am. So I'm maybe projecting that to the rest of the world. This is who I am, and something similar everyone else must be. That's not a very shining horizon. And there's one interesting philosopher, musician and philosopher in Argentina. He will say, you are not depressed, you are distracted, basically. Like implying you are too much, and distracted means concentrated in the wrong direction, basically. Because to be distracted, it means you are focused on something, and you are distracted on something else. If I concentrate in this direction, I'm distracted to this direction. If I concentrate here, I'm distracted here. If I give you my front side, I give my back to whoever is in the back. So simultaneously, the two things are happening. So he will say, you are distracted, you are depressed. So distracted basically means that, no? You are distracted to who you really are, to all that you can be. And the connection with revelation may be that through revelation, we actually can get a full picture of all that we can be. And we can make our most sincere attempt, independently of revelation, of trying to fathom all our prospect. And that's a very noble attempt. I'm not condemning that. But there's a limit to that, because there are certain things, as we say before, that we cannot just reach beyond our individual grasp. We need that infinite plane to come and reveal itself to us. No? Like sometimes I say to the devotees, revelation, for example, Krishna Lila, and so on. It's not, we cannot make up that story. It's not that someone one day, okay, I'm thinking about a nice story and all this idea of Vrindavan and gopis and this, but it's beyond our own imagination, our wildest imagination. But when we hear that, it makes perfect sense. That's like the subjective experience of being in touch with revelation. You could have never imagined that, but when you hear about that, it makes perfect sense. It's like, of course, it has to be like that. But I would have never imagined that. I remember once I was given a lecture in a yoga studio in Argentina, mostly to yoga students who were just getting to know the very basics of bhakti. So I gave the lecture, and at the end I asked, like, their teacher of most of them, I asked her, what do you think? How was the lecture? You know them better than me. And she told me, she has her style. So she told me, well, Maharaj, I look at their faces, and their faces were saying the following. And she told me, their faces were saying, I don't understand anything, but please do not stop. So I felt that's a good definition of revelation. Because in the beginning, you may hear about whatever, Krishna, what's that? But at the same time, there's a charm to that. Please don't stop. I don't have a clue what's going on, but continue. Eventually, the pieces will fit better, but in the beginning, it's like, what's that? Because not for the first time you're being faced with a new reality, totally unknown to you. So I don't understand fully. I cannot process through the medium that I generally use to understand things. So that's an interesting experience. Now you are exposed into a situation where you are accustomed to understand things in a certain way, to some particular processing, and now you are put in front of something that is transrational.
And is that ongoing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not irrational, but it's not rational either. You cannot limit that to your intellect. It's transrational. So you need yourself to go beyond the intellect.
It's experiential.
Yeah. So if you are open to the experience, you realize something is going on, but my rational faculties cannot grasp that. I have no point of reference to explain to myself what's going on, but at the same time, it's overwhelmingly clear that something is going on beyond my capacity. So that's an important, I'm not about canceling your intellect, but yes, using it so nicely that intellect itself will show its limits to you. That's a real warranty that you are using your intelligence. It's showing you, okay, I can take you till this point of the path. From now on, open yourself to revelation, if you will. You need to be carried by another type of vehicle. So again, I one detail, sorry. No, excuse me. So my point was this: revelation is showing us a particular picture that we cannot create or imagine for ourselves. So when we know about that, again, we are not knowing about Krishna and Vrindavan, let's say, but also we are knowing about we and all that we can be, our maximum prospect. Because sometimes if we just think for ourselves, what's my maximum prospect? Maybe stop suffering, peace, shanti, which again, it's noble, but what's beyond that, as my Guru Maharaj will say, what's beyond the zero? What's beyond being free from negative numbers? Okay, you attain peace, so now what? Is there something positive, something to do when you above that? So that comes from revelation. So when we get in touch with revelation and we open ourselves to that, again, we reach the point when we conclude, I need revelation. I cannot just reach the beyond by myself. I need that beyond comes to me, takes me there, basically. And that's what we call Shastra revelation. It's not just like old dusty book there. If you approach revelation with proper attitude, there will be revelation, there will be epiphany. And it's not just an emotional thing. It's something really that makes very clear it's going on, it's happening. But all your functions may collapse, maybe. But something above all those functions is going on. So, and in that connection, we may have a glimpse of all that we can be. Again, all our potential, and that's the way that we can really transcend things like depression or things like this, which basically had to do with, concluding in a very impoverished version of ourselves. And we being something more than that, because we as Atmas are big enough that even the world is small to the Atma, if you will. But if we are identified with something that is not what we are, naturally we'll find this type of conflict, or to the point of trauma or whatever. You are, as an Atma, have this size. I'm just figuring that you don't have a size, but you identify yourself as your, I don't know, physical, psychic body. So you see yourself as this, while actually you are this. So in time, you feel like suffocated. Like this is not enough. This is not enough. So depression has to do a lot with that. Like you are really seeing yourself as what you are not. And we point most see yourself not only as what we are, of what you are, but all that you can be under the influence of bhakti, where your nature can be fully maximized and upgraded. And for us, that's that's how the saintly person see us, basically. That's how a saintly person is not seeing us for who we were in the past, for example. That's sometimes the standard in this world. Like, you did this 30 years ago, I know you. And you're just limited to that version, not very generous. Or we ourselves throw that version ourselves, entangling something that, okay, time flows, goes on. And other people will be more generous and will judge you, if you will, according to what we are now. Still, it's not very generous because we need to change so many things yet. No, so if I'm only the thing that I'm now, so the most generous thing is you are being considered about all that you can become in the future, even though in the present you are a mess. So a saintly person is seeing the mess, but it's seeing beyond the mess, through the mess, and saying, oh, you have such a brilliant prospect. And that's what you are actually. That's where I see you. This is just temporary mess, but this brilliant potential, that's who you are, and let me help you to kindle that fire and take you in that direction. So it is said that we are seen by God with those eyes, not judging who you were, who you are, all that you can be. And saintly people also represent him in that line. So if you are receiving that glance, that generous glance, be very careful not to see others in a non-generous way, because you are being seen in a very generous way. So we should be generous with one another and always see each other not as what we were, what we are, but all that we can be. And if some mess still on the way, as we spoke, harmonize, integrate, and remain focusing the potential. If you lose sight of the potential, again, you're over-identified with whatever limited present situation is now, and you may end up being depressed, discouraged, angry, long list. So,
Yeah, thank you.
some words. Thank you for the question. Any other question or comments or criticism? Open tomatoes, flying tomatoes, organic at least, coming from the garden. So, yeah.
So it just struck me that the sadhaka then, as an ongoing attitude, has to be very open, vulnerable, okay with the uncertainty, because you don't know what's going to come. So the sadhaka
One does not know, but one should have exactly deep trust. No, Rakshi Shati Vishwaso Goptritvi Vananam Tata. These are two main aspects of Sharanagati, which is I have full confidence that Krishna will protect me, and I accept Krishna as my maintainer. And again, this is not some forced intellectual adjustment. You have to really feel that. So even though I'm thrown into an ocean of uncertainty or unpredictability, I have full trust. Krishna will protect me. Like the other day we spoke about that. Like when Agasur is there, the serpent with mouth open, and all Krishna's friends say, let's enter this. Seems like a new cave. And some of them say, no. It seems like a new cave, but it's not a new cave. It's a new serpent. And it seems that it's here to swallow us. And they say like, well, anyhow, Krishna will protect us. It will be fun. Let's enter. And they enter. Imagine. We might say that's psychologically dysfunctional. I mean, it's a serpent that is there to swallow you, and you enter to have fun. I mean, what? You are suicidal. You are what masochist? What's going on? No. They have full faith. Krishna will protect us. And you may ask them, and they may not have a clue how that will happen, but they know it will happen. And it happened, as you know. Krishna keeps his vow to protect his devotee. Nami Bhaktya Pranashati. The devotee will never perish. And he had to figure out how to do that, even, if you will. He did that. So yeah, in one sense, as practitioners, I think it's interesting, those dynamics, because in the beginning, this I was thinking, I think yesterday, in a more like primitive level of faith, we externally show apparently lots of faith. Like, I know this is like this, I have full faith and full, but we speak in many absolutes, in terms of many absolutes and many black and white, and externally it seems, wow, that person has such faith and conviction, but it may be fanaticism and so on. And actually that person is taking that like extreme stance because actually that person doesn't have deep faith. So needs to have everything set up and black and white and everything clear, because if some uncertainty cracks the whole thing, everything starts to collapse for that person. You follow? So that person cannot host any uncertainty. And externally it seems, wow, so much faith, but actually it doesn't have so much faith. On a deeper level, a person who has much more faith is more willing to host uncertainty and to express doubts. And it doesn't have to be a problem for their faith. You follow? I may not know something, and it's okay. You follow? Sometimes in the beginning, it's not. I have to know everything, or the guru has to know everything. No? Remember once someone asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what's the Yuga avatar for Treta Yuga? Prabhupada said, I don't know. Next question. They follow. And for some, the is like, oh, he doesn't know something. What's going on? No? But on some level, it's okay. It's not diminishing his position. You learn to separate, and you can coexist with doubt. Even you start to understand, I need doubt to nourish my faith. Not doubt to the point that I'm questioning the validity of the process, but I need to learn to doubt about my level of understanding of things. Because in the beginning, I already know, again, I take for granted. I know how to reply to every question, and I think I know. And when you face someone more mature, that's, as my Guru Maharaj said, that's the role of the Guru. My Guru said, the role of the Guru is to make you doubt. In which sense he's saying that? In the sense of, you sit and you think you already have Krishna consciousness for granted, and the Guru will speak in such a way that it will show you there is another way of thinking about that. There is a deeper way. There's a different way. And you start like to, oh my God, it's more than what I thought. Oh, it's not only what. So you start to doubt about your own understanding, but in a healthy way, in a way that you grow and you open yourself to another further revelation. So there's a point where doubt is nourishing faith, although it may seem paradoxical. In the beginning, we don't think in those terms. We think faith here, doubt here. But when you grow, you can integrate doubt into faith, and your faith will become even stronger, actually. But again, there's a deeper faith. So when at that moment you are okay with uncertainty, with the realm of paradox and the unknown, it's okay. You even start to develop some taste for that. Like adventurous spirit. Let's go into that direction, which is out of the comfort zone for sure. But you have this deep trust. Krishna will protect me. And if we are sincere and we look back, we will realize he has always protected me. So I don't have a real reason to be afraid, technically speaking. If I'm properly aware of the mercy and the revelation and the shelter that came to my life, I have no real reason to distrust them. The higher plane is doing its job. That's once the idea came. He's doing his job. He's protecting his devotees. He's not failing in that. Now we have to do our job, which is to have faith that Krishna is doing his job. That's our job. To have faith, firm faith that he's doing his part, because he's doing his part. The problem is that sometimes we don't believe that. We don't fully trust that Krishna is Krishna with all that it implies. And we forget that, and we try to replace him. And those things that we think he's not doing, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, sometimes, yeah. I'm Krishna devotee, but sometimes we may conduct as atheist, as if God does not exist, and I have to feel that whole, or impersonalist. We are not sometimes personalistic enough, and we relate in terms of being individuals, even with God. Even though I'm personalist, card-carrying member of this Sampradaya, yeah, but how you walk the talk, that's another thing. So the more we grow, the more we become aware of these situations, and the more we, of course, we try to be aligned with what comes from every pore of our being, words, acts, thoughts, feelings. And again, it's challenging because, of course, you start to realize that's not so easy, to be totally aligned, thought, feelings, words, acts. But, work in progress. That's the idea of being a sadhaka, being a practitioner. It's a glorious thing. Although the still there wasn't in a house. I think that's a saying in the US, bless this mess. And I don't know what's the application generally speaking for the people of that, but I was thinking about all that we are speaking here. No? Oh, Krishna bless this mess. And he's doing it. He's doing it. So the mess is less and less messy by his blessing. No? So that's our hope, basically.
Maharaj,
You want to say something
I
half
just
an hour
was-
ago? Sorry.
It's all right. No big deal. I can't even remember exactly what I was, but you brought up another point that even Krishna sometimes does, just like with Agasura. There's a moment when the cowherd boys have gone into his mouth, and Krishna said, "No, that isn't a good idea." But the Swarup Shakti is working in the background, and there's a Leela going on here. So Krishna has to catch up with the Leela.
Yeah. We'll
Very interesting.
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll speak about that more in a few days when we start the prayers of Brahma.
Oh, that's right.
Because the background of the prayers of Brahma is Agasur Lila and then Brahma Vimohan Lila. So the very first class we will be speaking about this Agasur Lila and how that takes to the bewilderment of Brahma and how that takes to the prayers of Brahma. But yeah, that's a very interesting section of the Bhagavatam.
I just listened to it.
Mm.
I just listened to Krishna book again. I just listened to that particular thing and all of Brahma's prayers, and they're very interesting. It's been years since I read that section. It's very interesting.
I have one question here. Maybe I can present that and we can conclude, so it's not that long.
Absolutely.
We have some minutes. Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. So one question from Balaram Das from New Zealand.
Wow.
So yeah, he asks, let's see, did you have an aha moment when you realized that bhakti was not inherent, or was it a gradual change of understanding over time? So basically he's asking if I have some kind of revelation which took me to conclude in the particular direction I present my points, or it was something like sequential, or how do you say?
An aha moment.
Yeah, gradual.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was an aha moment, no, but it was a gradual process with many aha moments in between, no, because that's also an interesting gradual process. Doesn't mean there's no aha moments in that. And what to speak, when I started writing the book, there were many aha moments, and I write that in the introduction, that I say, okay, I will try to present the perspective that Shastra is sharing, but I don't think also that's much more said in Shastra about this. So when I started to research and there's so many places. So and now I'm in a type of, I would say, healthy anxiety, because I've published the book officially, it's written, but I continue finding so many things that I'm thinking, oh, this could be added here, oh, this could be. So maybe some revised, you say? Revised edition somehow at some point, because there are so many things that, of course, in the introduction, I say I'm pointing to some things here. I won't be including every single, it's impossible and it's too much. But there are some interesting quotes that I'm tempted to include them in some future edition of wherever, no? So
it's interesting. Tolstoy said that he never read his books after he wrote them because he would have to rewrite them.
Well, that some things, I mean, I've not read this one yet, and I don't know if I will do, but I have some problems with finishing the book in that sense, no? Because I was reading and rereading and rewriting and finding something, and I'm kind of perfectionist for some. I mean, everyone is perfectionist in one direction or another. We may differ in which direction is our perfectionism, but when it comes to, in my case, to writing a book or something like that, I'm a little bit perfectionist, so it never ended. No? And I was speaking with my Guru Maharaj. He said, well, at one point you have to stop writing. No, I mean, you have to publish the book because it will never end. Which, of course, it's nice also. No, it's nice to feel it will never end, no? And that's what takes you to write the second book and the third book and the fourth book. And now I'm supposed to be promoting this book, the first one. But I was saying the other day, I'm already thinking about the second one. I have 100 pages of notes for the second one. So, but it's interesting. I mean, I didn't have a clue that I would be thrown into this type of process or dynamic. I always like to write, but never like thought about books and things like this. So
Do you think it's actually helped you grow writing this book? Has that been cathartic?
yeah, it helped me a lot to it express me also in terms of creative process, because I've studied music for some years before the practice, so also I have always this tendency towards writing, reading, drawing, music, play music, different instruments. So everyone has creative side. It's not only me, and you need to express that somehow, one form or another. So it took that interesting form in this particular stage of my life. In the previous stage, it was more through music or more through whatever. For me, speaking like I'm doing now also is for me pretty creative moment. So yeah, I really feel I've been very blessed and upgraded by going through the process. It was not easy nor comfortable. It was like, as you may imagine, there are days and days, but at the end of the day, it was really, really inspiring. So look forward for the rest
Well done.
chapters of the books, if you will, that may come, if they have to come, whatever Krishna wants. So anyhow, thank you so much to all of you. I see that there are some other questions, but we are relatively on time here, and we have Arctic now. So we will end up here, and we will continue, I think, tomorrow. Tomorrow we have morning class for those who would like to come or connect in 10 a.m. Q&A tomorrow. Yeah.
And then we'll have the Sunday feast, the Saturday feast lecture.
Okay, on the evening, also it's appearance day of Radha Kunda, I think, tomorrow. And we will be celebrating, among other things, also will be Balaram Rasa Yatra and some other Avirbhav, Tirubhav. But I think the announced topic, the announced topic is in connection to Sri Radha Kund. Let's see. Confirmation coming.
Balaram Rasa Yatra,
Yeah.
Krishna Vashanti
No, but you are seeing the flyer? No,
I'm seeing the.
No, I'm asking the flyer because in
I see.
Okay, no problem. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. or 6 p.m. in our CST time.
Actually, 4 o'clock tomorrow is the feast.
Yeah, for those who come
Physically.
Yeah, online. Still, we cannot send you prasad through here, so we are working.
I know
on
some of you are shopping with me, and that's fine.
Okay. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Gaur Nityananda ki jai, Shri Haladar, Brajanand Haladar ki jai, Shri Bhaktivan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman.
Hari Bol.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Holiness,
Sorry?
Padmanabha Swami.
Padmanabha, yes, His Holiness.
Sadhu Sangha ki jai.